So we're going to go ahead and print our first color now for your very first serigraphy project. And so remember, the main thing is that we want to be really careful, take our time to get all of our variables so that they're stable. The last thing you want to do is change anything around at this point. You just want to keep everything the same for each and every layer. So for your first project, there's just a couple things I'm going to recommend you do. You always have water close by, a couple of rags close by in case there's an emergency, some tape. Go get your squeegee, get that all set up, ready to go. I like to keep a big bundle of these black cards there just in case I need them. I always bring over a whole bunch of pieces of newsprint in case there's a little bit of a problem. I can clear my screen with that, as well as your good pieces of paper that you're going to use for the actual print. So what I always like to do is I like to start on a piece of newsprint, and so I just go ahead and load one of those in so that it's all pretty well lined up. You don't need to worry about your registration marks for just this first print. And then the way that this screen printing unit works is that there's a vacuum hose that's attached, and either the big table can be attached to the vacuum hose or this one. You just want to check, but the switch is right here. And it sucks the paper down really well so that it sucks that paper down really well so it doesn't move around. So it's really nice to keep it flat so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the screen when we pull the screen up. So once we have that all set and ready, we're just going to drop this down. You want to make sure you have good, what we call snap distance, or off contact between the paper and the screen. So if that's not correct, you can adjust that with some screws at the back of both of the presses. Or you can just go kind of old school and just stack some cards underneath here to make sure that your screen is off contact. In this case, we have good amount of distance between our paper and the screen, and the pressure of that squeegee will push it down on top of it. So now I'm ready to go. I have my ink all mixed. I'm going to print my first layer in just like kind of a simple gray color, just to keep it easy, and so we can add more colors. Remember, you're going to add a lot more color later on when you add your other 3 layers to this, or other 2 layers on top of this one. So you want to make sure that you give yourself a little bit extra room for that. And then one other thing I like to do, sometimes I'll do this before or after I print, is I'm going to go ahead and tape off this bottom section of the screen here, so that if I have any leakage, it doesn't make a giant mess on the press. I like to make sure that I give myself lots of extra sort of safety whenever I'm doing my printing. And so, just tape off any areas that you want to make sure you have that are safe. And you always tape on the bottom of the screen and not on the top, because when you pull the squeegee, it'll pull it loose. So now we're ready to print. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the vacuum unit. But before I do that, what I want to do is I want to flood my screen. So I always flood the screen with the angle of it up like this, and you're just pushing. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but whenever we flood the screen, we're not pushing hard. We're just taking the front edge of the squeegee, hold the squeegee at about this angle, and you just push it back. And what that does is it floods all those open holes in the stencil, and it makes sure that we're ready to print, and it kind of gets those activated. So now I'm going to turn on the vacuum, and I'm going to push, and when I push down, I'm going to push down with really hard pressure. It's really important that you get good, solid, hard contact on the screen. And when you print, if this is the screen, you don't want your squeegee too straight up. You definitely don't want it squishing like this. You want it at a nice kind of 45-degree angle like this. Really sharp, so the sharp edge is pushing the ink through, and you're pushing down really hard. If this is too high for you, you can use the other press that's set up, and it's a lot lower and allows you to get your body weight into it. So I'm going to turn this on. You won't be able to hear anything for a minute, but I'll pull my first one. So with really hard pressure, I push down on that. Now I need to flood my screen back. It's really important that you always flood the screen. So I'm going to lift up on the edge of it, and I'm going to push it back again and flood the screen. And this will keep the screen from filling. So this will keep it from filling and hardening up, because since that's acrylic ink, if it hardens in the screen, it's permanent and you can't get it out, which is very much of a nightmare. You have to buy a new screen. So if you look here now, we have our first print that's come off the press. It looks pretty much exactly like my transparency, except for the fact that it's printed in gray, which is exactly what we wanted. You can see the screen, you can see the registration marks are visible right there, so we've got those all ready to go. So now I'm ready to go to my first proofing paper. So over here off the screen, you can't see it, but we have our drying rack. It's all set up and ready to go. So I'm going to put it in there. what you want to do is you want to have a couple of pieces of paper that you can proof on that are ready for you just to kind of print your registration marks and everything and make sure that things are sort of all set for that. So I have that all ready to go. It's all lined up. I'm going to hit the vacuum pump and pull a couple of proofs. Proof 1. And you want to make sure that all the registration marks are printing. It's really important that we get those. So I have one set of registration marks that I'm having a hard time getting to print, so I'll see if I can fix that. So again, lining it up with my registration marks, turn this on. So I've barely got the registration marks there. So if you have a problem like that where you can't get something to print, the easiest way to fix it is just to take a little bit of water and a rag, and a clean rag, and just take a little bit of water and get it wet. And the area that's not coming out, like this registration mark for whatever reason, not cooperating here, I'm just going to kind of scrub it from the bottom and just try and clear it. You can kind of see where it's grayed out, it's not working. And then just take the clean part of the rag now, or a different rag, and just kind of wipe that down. Okay. And so I'll just print one more of these with the registration marks, just to see if I can get that last registration mark to print. And I'm still doing this on my cheap, crummy proofing paper, the cheapo stuff that just helps me make sure I know I'm getting it right. So I've got four registration marks now, so we're good to go. All four corners. Okay, so now what I want to do is I don't want to print these registration marks on all my good pieces of paper, right? So I'm going to tape all the registration marks off real carefully. So being careful not to get into the image area over there, I'm just going to put some tape over those registration marks so that it covers them up. And make sure it's not, again, that it's not drifting over into that image area and covering up something you want to have print. So let's see. Tip this up a little bit. So I'm going to tape off all four registration marks now, so I don't get any accidental printing. Now I'm gonna pull my last, and then I'm gonna go ahead and print on my good pieces of paper now all of the prints that I want to do. So, and make sure you keep the screen flooded. If you take too long on this, the screen might dry out. So if you ever looks like your screen's in danger of drying out, just spritz it with the water bottle real quickly. Just kind of spritz it to keep it moist, kind of like acrylic paint if you've ever painted with acrylics. Okay, here we go. So we have a nice print on here now. It looks perfect. We just need, and we don't have the registration marks, but the registration's still correct because we've been keeping them all the paper in the same spot, so all the variables stay the same. So now I'll go ahead and print the rest of the edition, and then we will we'll come back and add a second layer.